welcome back to Got Wire. Today I'm going to be starting on my TrueNas Scale build. These are all my components that I have here that I'm going to use for the server that I'm going to put TrueNas Scale on. This is my chassis. I'm not sure what one it is, but I'll link it in the description. But it's pretty affordable. I think it was like $110. And I got the USB drive with TrueNas Scale on it. Here in the video, I'll put in here how I made this USB drive. But all these hard drives here that I'm going to install in it are refurbished Seagate 4 terabyte NAS drives. And the reason why this one has an adapter on it is this is a 4 terabyte Exos drive that is a SAS drive, and this is going to go from SAS to SATA. And this one is a Seagate Exos drive, but it's a SATA drive. And the way I'm going to convert the SAS drive to SATA is I'm going to install this card in here that is a SAS card, and it has SATA pigtails, and that's on my connect all my hard drives to, is this card. And then for the power supply, I have a CX600. I believe this is Corsair. This is a used one that I bought off eBay, so it's kind of like a budget build. Since all these hard drives are refurbished hard drives off Amazon. Now all these do come with a 1-year warranty. I don't know how good the warranty is, but it was cheaper than buying new drives. And this is my motherboard that I have here, a B550M motherboard. I have a Ryzen 5 in here. I'm not sure what Ryzen 5 it is. I'll tell you later here in the video. And then I have a cooler, because I was using a stock cooler, but it was too loud, so I bought an AXP90 black low profile cooler. And that's what I got on the motherboard here already. I went ahead and put it on the motherboard already, so I'll show you what that looks like. All these drives here that end up falling. Do that before they all fall and break. But this is the motherboard I'm going with, and this is a low profile cooler I already mounted to it. If you've seen how I had to do it, I kind of did it jankily. I had to grind down these bolts here. I don't know if I used the wrong bolts or what, but with this case, they were sitting too far off the bottom of the motherboard. And then I have 128 gigs of non-ECC RAM that I'm going to use because TrueNas Scale and TrueNas in general, it loves RAM. And like I said, instead of attaching all the hard drives to the motherboard here with these SATA connectors, I'm going to be using the SAS card that I bought off eBay. And this is pretty affordable. But here next clip, I'll start breaking this case down, and I'll show you what the inside of the case is and how hard it is to work in. I got the top off this case. A couple things I forgot that were actually in the case. What I'm going to use for networking is this Giga Plus SFP Plus card. I'm going to feed this with 10 gig fiber and run some 10 gig on it. And then the fans that come in the front, it comes with 2 fans that mount on the inside of here. These are some pretty cheap loud fans. I went ahead and bought some Noctua fans the same size. That should be quieter and it should work better. And then up here in the front, I have 2 120 gig SSDs to install TrueNas Scale to. I'm gonna RAID those together. So if one fails, I still have another one that works. And then I'm going to use these SSDs as a cache, and they're both 2 terabytes. Same thing, if one fails, I'll have the other as backup. So those are 2 terabytes I'm going to use for my cache, my SSD cache on this TrueNas Scale build. And then on the inside of the chassis, you have USB 3 on the front, and then you have your front panel connectors, power, reset, all that good stuff. Your motherboard mounts here. It's got a clear cover to isolate it from the bottom metal. And then all your hard drives mount here in these cheap frames. So 4 here, And then I am going to mount 2 on the DVD drive area. That's why these have those weird brackets to make them wider, so I can mount them over here. And then the power supply mounts back here in the back right. And this is I believe it's a 2U case. So all my NVMe cards have to have a low profile bracket so they will fit in the case. But here in a minute I'll start mounting the motherboard in here. Get these fans mounted and the power supply put in here. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do a time lapse or if I'll just show you afterwards, but you'll see here in a second. Alright, I've started building on this case. I've already found some major flaws with it. I'll show you here in a minute. Alright, well, I guess this case wants you to use a smaller motherboard than this, because as you can see, the RAM here, and then you have the hard drive cage, and then you also have the fans that mount here. Well, the hard drive cage, when you have one in the bottom, like how this one is, the very bottom slot, you put it there, well, yeah, it hits the RAM and the motherboard power connector. So that's a problem. So what I'm going to do is that screw back here, or back there, I'm going to tilt it so it lines up. And I'm just going to leave these other 2 screws unmounted. And that gets this side to clear the RAM. And on this side, I'm going to stick a hard drive in the top, which will go over top of the RAM. And then on the bottom, I'll mount one of these SSDs. Now, the other SSD, I'll probably just 2-side sticky tape it somewhere in here. Now, the hard drive that went in the bottom of there, I'm going to put it in the 5 1/4 inch drive bay. I got one here at the very top, one in the middle, and then there'll be enough for one at the very bottom with these brackets that I have. Let's see if I can pull this one out. And this is the one at the very top. And as you can see, I get the one in the middle temporarily put in there with a screw. And then I'm going to stick the hard drive that was supposed to go over here in the very bottom. So I should be able to fit all my hard drives in here. And then the power supply goes here. But that is a major flaw. And this is going to be kind of janky because it's tilted sideways with only 1 screw. But I mean, that's all I can really do unless I buy a whole new smaller motherboard, which I don't want to do. But I'm going to start mounting this stuff here, and I'll show you what I ended up with here in a minute. But this is how far I've gotten. Sorry, the glare from the stupid light in here. But I got the hard drive mounted here, and underneath there, you can't really tell, but these 2 wires for the SATA go to a SSD, a SATA SSD underneath there that I have on a bracket on here. And they're right up against the RAM. And then this one here, I kind of like jankily mounted it down there. I don't know if you can see the screw, you probably can't. But I drilled a hole, and you can kind of see how I jankily, mounted it. You can't really see that one, but I had drilled a hole back there. I was able to get a screw there and on back there, and one back there. And you can see this one's at like an angle, and it's hard to tell, but that's just barely not touching that RAM. But I have 2 hard drives here, and then I got my SATA card here, and I got my SFP Plus card here. I installed the NVMe SSD right here. There's another one underneath here, and then I'm gonna have 3 hard drives here. There's 1, there's 2, and I need to put 1 right underneath here. And then the power supply goes here, and there'll be some space right here to stick cables. But all in all, this case is real tight to build in. And I ran out of SATA power, so I just bought some Molex to SATA for these 3 hard drives over here. So, and this SSD right here, I still have to find a place to mount it in here, which may be a little hard considering the fact everything's full in here. I might try to 2-side sticky tape it in between these drives and the power supply. I don't know. But another thing for the power supply, there's no hole here in the bottom, and on, oh, I guess there is ventilation right here on the lid. So when you mount the power supply, you have to mount the fan up so it can vent out the lid. I thought there wasn't any ventilation. I was going to try to cut a hole here, but I guess there's ventilation in the lid. But this is how far I've gotten. It's really tight in here, and these drive holders are a pain in the ass. You can kind of see that that one's crooked from me mounting it, so it won't interfere with that RAM. But yeah, I'll continue working, and once I get the adapters, I'll show you, the finished product in here. It won't look pretty, but it'll work. Well, I got everything in there. I would show you guys inside of that, but I am highly embarrassed. The cable management is horrid in it. It was a pain in the butt to squeeze 6 drives and 2 SSDs all in there with power supply. But you can see the 3 drives I got here, and then I got 2 drives here, and then another drive and an SSD there. But right now I got it hooked up to my computer, and it is a AMD Ryzen 5 5600G is what I'm using, and then I have 120 something gigs of RAM, and right now it's detecting the 2 M2 2TB SSDs I put on the motherboard, and SATA says not present, but it's because I got all the hard drives plugged into the SAS controller, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'll find out when I install the TrueNas Scale, it won't detect the drives and the BIOS on a SAS controller. But I'm running at 35C. I got that low profile cooler on it, and like I said, there's the cutout for the power supply for venting, and I got 2 cards in the back. I got the SAS controller card, and then I got the 10 gig SFP Plus card. But on next video, or next section, I'll show installing TrueNas Scale onto that thing, and I'll see for sure if it picks up all my hard drives. This is the current setup. I got the IGNet travel router, and I got plugged into my Enterprise Ubiquiti PoE switch here. That PoE port's turned off. That's plugged into the router. This is the TrueNas Scale box, and then that green SFP goes down to my wiring mess to my switch down there that my laptop is currently plugged into. And I have no internet, but I have the router pulled up and the clients listed. I'm mainly doing this so I can find out what the MAC address is of that SFP Plus card, so I can configure pfSense to assign it an IP address as soon as I plug it in, a static IP address. I'm sure I could do that in the software, but I wanted to set it up on this test network first before I plugged it into my actual home network. But I got a monitor plugged in, and I got it turned on. Here in a minute, I'll show you guys installing the operating system on it. I'll plug my mouse into it, and that should be all I need. I might need a keyboard to install TrueNas Scale on it, but I'll show you that here in a minute. My mouse plugged into it here on the front, and then I also have the USB drive with TrueNas Scale plugged into it on the back on a USB 3.0 port. These are only 2.0. I have the the BIOS system BIOS up. I'm gonna hit reset here, and we'll see what happens here. It should automatically boot into TrueNas Scale, the installer. But I've never done this before, so we'll see what happens with it. I'll we'll see how quick it goes. I was gonna pause it and just cut it to what it does when it turns on, but we'll find out here. Well, some time has went by, and I finally got it to work. I was running into a problem. I turned on the PC, had that plugged in, told it to boot from that. Well, I used Rufus, and I installed it wrong. So then I had to reinstall TrueNas Scale using Belena Etcher, and I finally got it to install right. Well, when I plugged it in, it said bad SIM signature. So I was looking on the forums, and it said to turn off secure boot. So I turned that off, Still, bad sim signature. Well, I turned off UEFI boot and turned on, I think it's CSM boot. And once I turned on CSM boot, it worked. So if you had that problem, turn off secure boot first. And if that doesn't work, turn off UEFI and do the other boot, which is, I think, CSM. But I'm going to go ahead and run through this installation here. I'm going to swap out these flash drives for the faster one. And since I updated my BIOS, I'm going to set the speed of my RAM to turn on, I think it's XMP. Alright, sorry for the shakiness. So we're just going to go to install upgrade. Alright, I have a couple drives listed here. We'll see what, I have the two 120 gig SSDs. I'm going to install it on those. If I can quit hitting buttons, I'm going to install it, pick those two drives, and hit next. Alright, well, it'd help if I could read. You highlight them with the arrow keys, and then you hit the space bar to select them. So we're going to hit enter here with those two selected. Yes, I want to proceed. Administrative user admin. And then we'll set a password here real quick. Alright, I set my super secret password. We'll hit enter. Alright, we'll click on create swap. And we'll let it do its thing here, and I'll show you once it gets done. Alright, so it just got done. The TrueNas installation on the SDC SATA succeeded. Please reboot and remove the installation media. So I'm going to hit OK, remove the USB drive, and I'll show you what it pops up with next. It should be getting an IP address from my mock setup here, but I'll show you what it pops up here next. Alright, that's what it popped up with, and here in a minute, yep, it's automatically loading the operating system. There we go, and it should, once it gets done, give us an IP address from this mock router that I have here. We'll see what it does here. So this is what you should get, an IP address. The reason why I wasn't getting an IP address was because my 10 gig NIC didn't get recognized. So I had to plug in to the 2.5 gig Ethernet port. So that's a 2.5 gig Ethernet port, and that's my 10 gig SFP plus port. It's showing activity, but I don't know if I've changed the interfaces in TrueNas Scale or not. But I'll show you here on my computer typing in the IP address, and I'll show you what the main page looks like. I got my TrueNas Scale build up and running, and I have it assigned to IP address right here in pfSense. What I ended up doing to get my 10 gig NIC to work was I put the one that wasn't working in my main PC, and the one that was in my main PC I stuck in my TrueNas Scale build, because I guess TrueNas Scale didn't have the drivers for that one. Windows 11 didn't have the drivers either. I had to download them off a website, and once I installed them, that card worked. But it was just easier to swap the cards instead of trying to install the driver on TrueNas Scale. But anyways, so since I swapped the cards, it already had a signed IP address in pfSense. So I just renamed it from my gaming PC to static IP for my TrueNas Scale. So I'm going to go here at TrueNas Scale IP. I'll just paste that in, hit enter, and the default username is admin, and then the password's whatever you made when you set up TrueNas Scale. And this is the main page of TrueNas Scale. Once you get here, you can go to storage and create a pool and go from there. There's other videos that tell you how to do that, but I just got this up and running. And if you have problems, I had to disable secure boot. And I also had to change it from UEFI to CSM boot. And once I swapped it to CSM boot, I quit getting that unknown file system group error, whatever that was. But most of the time, people say if you get that error, you just disable secure boot and that fixes it. Well, in my case, that didn't fix it. I don't know if I was in the wrong settings on the MSI motherboard or what. But swapping it from UEFI to MS something boot, that fixed it. And my networking, as you can see here, is 10 gig, and I have 121 gigs. And I will show you my hard drives here real quick. Storage, create pool. Let's go to this, manual disks, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 drives in here. It's hard to count, but if I just do hard drives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's all 6 of my hard drives. I just create a pool. Excuse me. But other than that, I hope you guys liked the video. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and have a good one.